Hello everyone, good morning. Thank you for coming to this open day session today. My name is Simon Hubbard, I'm head of the training programme. Just want to mention to you that we are recording this session. The only people that will be speaking are myself and colleagues from the PGA. Our focus this morning is going to be on our part-time courses. If anyone has any queries or questions about any of the full-time courses, perhaps we can get in touch with you afterwards. Would it be possible, you should have on your screen an icon to raise your hand. Could someone just let me know that they can hear me okay by raising their hand, please? Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much. Also, you should have the facility to ask a question. So the way that this is going to work is that when we've finished our presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So if people have questions as we're going through, please feel free to write the questions down and we'll run through them at the end. Obviously, these are slightly different circumstances to how we would work normally. Normally, we would have people coming into the academy, and we're still pretty confident it went well the last session that we did, that we're able to hold this online and answer all the questions that we have that come to us. So the way that we're going to work today is that in a moment I'm going to hand over to Dr. Paul Wiseman, who is the Executive Director of Education at the PGA, to welcome you, and then we will be going around to our subject leaders, as you can see on the screen. So I'm going to start by handing over to Paul. Paul, it's over to you. So if you want to share your webcam and unmute yourself.
Yeah, is that okay? Has that come through now? Okay. Yeah, can you see me now, Simon? Am I through? Yeah.
Yeah, can see you, Paul.
That's great. Hopefully everyone can see me in my shed. Welcome everybody to the open day. It's a pity we're not at the Belfry. Looking out the window, it's a bit cloudy, but it's still a very warm day with good weather forecast. So it'd be a lovely day to, after the open day, to walk over to Sam's Bar and have a spot of lunch looking over the PGA National, the Brabazon. Unfortunately, our circumstances as it is means we're doing a second open day online. But we're hoping to, by the 1st of September, to start making tracks in opening up the training academy and the HQ at the Belfry. Another thing that's disappointing about not being there is it would be lovely to show you all around our training academy, which is sponsored by Ping, called Ping House, and really show off the new swing studio, which was only recently being refitted. And it's a fantastic facility, as well as a gym that's just recently been refurbished, which really adds to the quality of the provision that our trainees are lucky enough to access. So unfortunately it can't be face to face, but if it went as well as the first open day, I'm sure you'll get a lot of useful information, and I'll encourage you to ask questions at the end of the session or during the session. And if any issues arise during the presentations of the team or from myself, please get in contact after the open day, and we'll be more than happy to answer any individual inquiries. I've now been working at the PGA for roughly 3 years, and it's a highlight of my career. I couldn't be more proud to be associated with an iconic brand. I'm an avid golfer, unfortunately not a very good golfer, not as good as the guys you're going to hear today anyway, that's for sure. And I'm incredibly proud to be associated with the most famous 3 initials in golf. And I think that is true of anyone who is associated with the PGA. It's got a very proud history. It started in 1901 through what we refer to as the triumvirate. Taylor, Braid and Varden had the foresight to group together and create the first professional golfers association. We're very proud to predate the PGA of America and all other PGAs across the world. And in fact, some of our early members were the people that were the founding members of the other PGA professionals. And in fact, our historian at the association, Dr. Phil Weaver, who was a chairman for many years under Sandy Jones, who was a chairman, talks or tells us that we're the oldest sports association in the world, and or professional sports association in the world. So that history is something that is integral in who we are, and anyone who is lucky enough to be associated with three letters is something which we're there integral. They're part of that history as well. Associated with the history, another aspect which we can't really talk about the PGA or without mentioning the Ryder Cup. You know, one of the biggest sporting occasions in the world, certainly something we look forward to every 2 years, and something that I'm sure everybody sitting at home and watching this is devastated that it's not going to be taking place at Whistling Straits this September. And the Ryder Cup is something that we are inextricably linked with, and we're a core partner. And Samuel Ryder was fortunate to bequeath the Ryder Cup, the actual cup, to us, and it's something that we own. And we're proud to be associated with Samuel Ryder's own PGA professional, Abe Mitchell, who was his personal coach. I suppose these elements, the history and the Ryder Cup, create what I already referred to as the PGA brand. And the PGA brand is world renowned. And when we travel around the world and go to these major events, you know, people always want to make contact with us and are very aware of who we are. The brand itself now has 8,000 members. It's not as big as America, but we have by far more PGA professionals working abroad than PGA America. And so the current 8,000 members fulfill 75 different roles in golf, roughly. And currently we've got about 1,500 to 1,700 PGA professionals working overseas, with a large expanding market in the Far East, in Thailand, in China, in India, that we've had recent contacts with. We're also fortunate enough, because of who we are and what we do, is to link with some of the biggest organisations in golf. So Simon, who introduced the team, has got very close links to the R&A, as other members of the team you're going to meet today. Obviously, we're linking with the European Tour through the Ryder Cup and meet regularly at big events with the PGA of America, Australia, Canada, South Africa, etc., etc. So we're one of the big organisations and one of the most influential organisations in world golf, and certainly within GB&I, which we cover. So that history is something that forms the background of the landscape in which we occupy. But I think as Director of Education, the thing that I was most surprised of when I came here, but I'm certainly most proud to be associated with, is with the education program that currently exists, and which is led expertly by Simon, who introduced. The program itself, the education program in the PGA, didn't start in 1901 with the triumvirate, but was introduced 50 years ago. And it started in a relatively informal way with pros helping each other, and it's developed over the last 50 years into an incredibly sophisticated online distance learning program. We're linked to our core partners in the HE sector with the University of Birmingham, and in Scotland with the University of Highlands of the Islands. The department we're linked to in the sports department in the University of Birmingham is ranked 6th in the world, and University of Highlands of the Islands in Scotland is linked and partners to Royal Dornoch. And for those people listening in Scotland, we'll be looking at developing those links and developing proactive links to the residentials at Royal Dornoch going forward. We are a HE provider, and not only are we a HE provider, we're an excellent provider. And we've got a team of experts that you're going to hear from in a minute that are made up of Simon, David, Mark, Philip, Jack, Craig, David, and we've got 2 other people joining us in September, all of which are experts in their field. And we're lucky enough, and we need to mention it now. I know he's been congratulated on a number of occasions, but Jack, who you heard from, has just qualified with a doctorate in sports science, focusing on golf, and I'm sure he'll talk us through in detail some of the work he's been focusing on and some of the work he works with the trainees. So well done, Jack. But again, it just shows the calibre of the individuals that form the core teaching team. I think it's probably worth me mentioning that my background has been in education. And for many people who look at the training programme and see the Diploma of Higher Education or the foundation degree as a core element, are sometimes surprised to see such an academic focus within the PGA training programme. And this just shows really and reflects the quality of the individuals we attract, but also it focuses on the demands of the jobs going forward and the type of roles that our PGA professionals, once they qualify, will move into. I've worked in schools and local authorities and universities, and in particular university I've worked in for the last 20 years. And I can reassure anybody out there that the training program that is delivered within the PGA is the most professionally and well organised program I have ever come across. We're validated by our partner universities, and we only recently, I think yesterday, got our external examiners report, which is outstanding in every respect. And I'm very proud to really claim to be one of the leading organisations on online learning. Sorry if I can say it correctly. And I think that's important to mention in our current circumstances. While many universities are trying to reinvent themselves during August, and holidays are being cancelled and courses are being rewritten, we aren't. And you'll see how young and energised the team look. And that's because our online training programme is as it is. We'll tweak it as we always do over the years, and we might have to pay some attention to the coaching elements. But no elements of the training programme will suffer. And the online programme, as we said, will be improved year on year, but it'll go as it has done successfully over the last 20 years, working in partnership with higher education. So at such an uncertain time, we feel very secure, and we feel we're in an ideal situation to continue delivering the standard of education that we have been doing. So again, welcome to the Open Day. Thank you very much for giving us your time today. Please come back with some questions, and I hope you get a lot of information out of it. I'm sure you'll find it interesting. So I'll hand it back to Simon and wish you all a good weekend and rest of the Open Day. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. If you can switch off your webcam and your microphone now, what I'm going to do is to hand over to David.
Hi everyone. Thanks very much for the introduction, Paul. Good to see everyone. I hope everyone's keeping well, obviously in these very bizarre times. So my name is Jack Wells. I'm the sports scientist here at the PGA. So my background is sports science as an undergrad degree. Did my masters in sports performance, and as Paul sort of rightly said, recently passed my PhD exam looking at biomechanics and strength and conditioning for golf. Really sort of focused on trying to get golfers to swing the club faster, hit the ball further. And I'm also, in terms of also being like an educator for the PGA, I'm also a consulting strength and conditioning coach working with England Golf. So I work with the under 18s and the 16s age group, trying to help them develop and essentially trying to help them improve their golf, and if they want to get on tour, hopefully trying to help them with that. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is I'm going to talk about what we have or what we deliver with regards to the sports science modules. So in year one, we cover a number of different areas. So we talk about junior development. So if people think, or if the older or the parents consider what it was like when they first learned how to play golf, typically it would be a case of actually standing on a range, hitting balls, hitting balls after balls after balls. But now we know there's probably a little bit of a better way to develop juniors, and that's more around developing fundamental movement skills. So for example, can someone squat, can someone jump, can someone throw? Now that might sound quite bizarre, but if you think about it, if you throw a ball, if you take your shoulder back, actually your shoulder's in external rotation, and if you just take your other arm up, you're actually at the top of the backswing. So developing skills that actually really might transfer to the golf swing. So we talk about trying to get kids engaged in basic fundamental movements prior to going into something really complicated, which is the golf swing. We talk about anatomy in the swing. So for example, how the joints work. So if we go to the top of the backswing, my shoulder's working in external rotation. If I rotate the other way, it's internal rotation. And that can help with understanding where unwanted movements might be occurring in the swing. But it'll also link to some of the stuff we talk about later on in terms of screening, which I'll go into a little bit more detail. We also talk about physiology in the swing. So the physiological demands of the swing, physiological demands of the sport. And one of the big areas that we certainly try and hit on a lot is warm-ups, and ultimately the importance of hitting the ball far. And I'm going to talk to you about almost why warm-ups are so important in terms of trying to hit the ball over a long distance. And this is evidenced by some of Mark Brody's work. So Mark Brody, if you've not read this book, it's called Every Shot Counts, and it is absolutely brilliant for anyone that's interested in golf stats. So really, from Mark Brody's book, he talked about the value of hitting the ball 20 yards further, and he found from this data that PGA Tour players that could hit the ball 20 yards further would save 0.75 strokes per round. So what I did, because I'm a bit of a geek like this, I had a look at 2 players on the PGA Tour, and I had a look at the average distance, average difference in their average scoring. So, for instance, we have Rory McIlroy here, who scored 69.303 shots per round, and not far behind him is Hideki Matsuyama, who's also a very good player. And you can see the difference in their average scoring for that season is 0.719 shots per round. So within that magic 0.75. But what I'd also then point you to is actually look at the difference in the prize money earned. So McIlroy won $1.7 million more than Matsuyama. And he actually played in less events as well. So there was more weekends where he could put his feet up. Now, what I'm not saying is, if I can get you to hit the ball 20 yards further, you're not going to be a millionaire. I can't promise that, I'm sorry. But for less skilled players, so players that are going to be predominantly based at a golf club, an 18 handicapper might save around 1.5 shots a round from hitting the ball 20 yards further. So actually, if we can do things that are really going to help to facilitate that, that's going to be really advantageous. What adds insult to injury here is actually McIlroy hits the ball about 18 yards further than Matsuyama. So one of the big things that I talk about is warm-ups, and I'll just show you some of the exercises that we recommend. So this is some research that I conducted with a colleague of mine, Ben Langdown, and we performed 5 exercises in total, all with very good golfers, and we wanted to see what happened to performance. So exercise 1 was just clock lunges. Exercise 2 was overhead squats. The third exercise we did was scapular wall slides. Then hip rotations, so really working on mobilizing our hip joints, and then thoracic rotations. They were the 5 exercises we did. And what did we find? So I'll show you part of the results, or I'll talk about what we found. We found there was a significant increase in club head speed, and there was a significant increase in ball speed. But we actually found with one individual, they hit the ball 40 yards further, which is, for someone who's a very good golfer, 5 handicap or better, just doing those 5 exercises, that individual was able to hit the ball 40 yards further. So as you're all keen golfers, I imagine a lot of you are probably thinking, well, that's about 4 club lengths, that is difference. So the value of actually engaging in the warm-up is huge, because you can basically hit the ball a lot further, and it's just so simple. And that's why I describe warm-ups as the lowest of the low-hanging fruit. So that's what we cover in year 1. In year 2, we cover on-course nutrition. So we look at strategies or ways in which we can utilize nutrition on the course. So for example, if you're feeling thirsty, that's actually a sign that you're already dehydrated. So one of the things we always recommend is carry a water bottle that's visible and easy to get hold of. And once you get onto every tee, or after you walk up every green, have a sip of water to keep yourself rehydrated. I also do, so during COVID with the England golfers that I was working with, we did some cookery classes. So we did some no-bake energy golf balls. So we try and cover a lot of things that are really practical and really easy and simple to do. We talk about the posture in the swing, so how someone's posture can affect the mechanics of the swing, and again that links into golf coaching, but I'll talk about that shortly when we talk about year 3. And we also talk about the psychology and the golfer, so creating an environment that is really motivational. Ultimately, what we want as a golf coach is we want someone to come back for another lesson. Now, we want that because ultimately, as a business, you're going to gain more money. But what you want to try and do is create an environment that's so motivational that individual is desperate to come back for another lesson. And that's what we try and do. So we use something called self-determination theory, and we use really practical tips. So for example, giving a golfer control or a say in what they want to do. Now that can be as simple as saying, what do you want to work on today? So you're giving that golfer a say in what they're going to work on and how they're going to improve. So there's little tactics like that that we can utilize to try and help develop a motivation environment. So that's what we cover in year 2. In year 3, we cover screening and links to the swing. So how does let's say we talked about the joints in year 1, we talked about posture in the golfer, but how does this really affect the mechanics of the swing? Now what I'd like you to do is just really quickly, if you sit at the end of your seat and sit nice and upright, imagine someone just pulled the top of your head and you're sitting nice and upright. Put your arms across your chest, and what I'd like you to do is go into your back swing and follow through. So just keep doing that. And now what I'd like you to try and do is poke your shoulders forward, poke your chin forward. So I want you to age yourself by about 40 or 50 years. Now try and rotate. So for those individuals that aren't doing this, you can see it's a lot harder. So for people at a golf club that play golf a lot, standing over the ball, they might get into quite a poor posture. And what that can do is that can affect their rotation. It can affect the distance they take the club back, and we find that that affects the distance that they can hit the ball. The other aspect we look at is strength and conditioning and forming relationships with practitioners. So with the aspect of strength and conditioning, the guy on the right in this picture, this was part of my PhD work. So this is a maximum strength test, and this is now utilised by the European Tour to profile all their players. So he's standing on force plates and pulling as hard and as fast as he can. He's measuring how much force, or we're measuring how much force is going through the ground, and it's a great. I found that really strongly relates to club head speed, and it's a really simple and safe way of measuring someone's maximum strength. And the other aspect we talk about is golf biomechanics and links to the swing. And I'll just show you a pressure plate trace. This is from our brand new studio. So we've got a very good golfer here who's a long hitter. So he actually swings the club at about 130 miles an hour. To give you an idea, Rory McIlroy, who's very quick, swings at 125. So if I just put my cursor on the screen, you can see the face on and down the line for the golfer. So these are the cameras that are filming the golfer in the studio. On the top right of the screen, you can see his feet. So you've got his right foot and you've got his left foot. Now, can you just see there's a little dot in the middle of the trace? I'll just put my cursor over it so you can see it. And that is moving towards, or it's moving back towards the target. So what we see from a long hitter is when this individual is visually at the top of their backswing, they've actually already started to move their pressure back towards the target. Now, you wouldn't be able to see that with the naked eye. You'd only be able to see it using pressure plates or force plates. And this is a classic sign of a really, really big hitter. The other thing we look at is, if I look at the bottom right of the screen, can you see the peak of this green force time curve? That is absolutely huge, and that's another classic sign of a really big hitter. So we can use our studio to look at impact factors, look at ball flight, but we can also look at the mechanics and the ground reaction forces and the biomechanics of the swing, and help to educate our golfers on how you can utilize these as pros. And this technology, although whilst we've probably got one of the best swing studios in the world, this stuff is actually quite cheap to get hold of and is being utilized a lot by professionals in and around the industry. So that concludes my talk. I just want to say thank you very much for listening. If people do have any questions, that's absolutely fine. Quite a lot of people do ask about the warm-ups, and can we get a copy of that? If you speak with Simon or Tracy, I'm happy to send over what the warm-up is, and if people do want to do that, they can utilize that and see if it helps their game. But thank you very much, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. That's great. So we're going to move straight on and move into the golf coaching section now, which is obviously very closely aligned to a lot of the sports science content. My name is David Colclough. I'm the head of coaching and sports science for the PGA. And so for the next few minutes, I'm just going to take you through some of the golf coaching curriculum that we have, and also explain to you perhaps a little bit about why it's so important that we have good knowledge as a PGA professional to be able to deal with all sorts of golfers who will come across during our career as a PGA golf pro. Paul and Jack both mentioned the swing studio, the performance studio that we now have. This is a picture on the front screen here of what it looks like. And again, as we've said, unfortunately, we would love to be in there providing you with a practical demonstration, but it is a great room to not only learn about the theory of coaching and sports science, but also to put it into action, as Jack alluded to there in his last couple of slides with the pressure plates and the cameras. So we'll hope many of you will be joining us this next year, and we'll have the opportunity to come and actually visit with us and learn from us and learn together in 2021. If we look at the population of the PGA, we're around about 8,000 golf professionals, and it's fair to say probably 90% of PGA professionals will do some coaching at some point during the month. We also know from tracking our members that there's probably around 30% who are qualified PGA professionals, but they spend the majority of their time, if not all of their time, coaching. So that's their primary source of income. So it's a big topic, it's a big subject area, but equally it's also an area where many of our members are spending an awful lot of time trying to help people. And it's fair to say whether that help is in sort of more beginner classes, where people are learning the game for the first time, or whether it's in a world-class environment where people are trying to be the best they can be and make history and make a name for themselves. Many of you will probably recognise Rory McIlroy and Tommy Fleetwood on the two pictures here. Who you may not know are the two gentlemen that are to their right. So on the top slide, Michael Bannon is a PGA professional who has guided Rory from almost his first touch through to being world #1 and all of the fantastic achievements that he has had during his career to date. And next to Tommy Fleetwood is a gentleman that some of you may know if you're from the north of England, Alan Thompson from Heswell, who again has a prolific number of very, very good players coming through, with Tommy probably being at the top of the tree. And as well as having one PGA professional, there are actually some players who are on the world stage who have 3 or more PGA professionals. So here, Francesco Molinari, who obviously was a great performer in the recent Ryder Cup and obviously won the Open Championship very recently. He works with Dennis Pugh on his long game, who's a PGA Master professional, James Ridyard on his short game, and Phil Kenyon, who's on that right-hand picture there, who's also a PGA Master professional, on his putting. So as well as the sort of overarching coaching role, there are certainly areas within the game where people have started to specialize and ultimately are having an impact on the world stage. But as we probably know, the world stage is not for everybody. There are a limited number of players that can play on tour at any one time, and of the 3.5 million people who play golf, many of them will come across a PGA professional in their time playing the game. And the value of great coaching is already clearly identified. Some work that was done by Sports Coach UK fairly recently identified that if you are able to deliver great coaching, then you can be a catalyst for more people taking part in the game, which is obviously is always a vital thing. But you can also increase their own personal enjoyment. And again, you'll find many amateur golfers who will be as impressed and as overjoyed as Tommy Fleetwood or Rory McIlroy are when they win a tournament, with just helping them improve their game a little bit further, so they can hit a nice bunker shot, or they can hit a longer drive, or they can play at the lowest round of their lives. So it's really important that we don't lose sight of the fact that coaching is a critical element of participation, from the very first touch to the world-class guys out there playing for their living. The other element that perhaps sometimes gets overlooked is why all of this is important. We have golf clubs up and down the country and golf facilities that rely on more and more people playing golf, more and more people staying in the game and playing more frequently and spending more time at the golf course. So it's vital that the information that we share with you and the opportunities we give you to learn about coaching help you get somebody from being on the practice ground or in the driving range out onto the golf course and using the golf facility as much as possible. Because we have, as I say, a number of clubs, proprietary or private, that rely on golf participation. And the PGA professional is probably the individual on site with the most relevant skills to help golfers improve their experience of the game on a day-to-day basis. And if we can do that, and certainly it's something we talk to our golf club owner friends about a lot, then what we start to see is clubs that thrive both on the course but also off the course, and that can be a critical, especially at a time like now. So just to give you a little bit of an insight into the coaching syllabus that those of you who join us will be going through. The next couple of slides are going to just link into that. Very often in my role, I will be asked by either assistants or people who are interested in the training program, so is there such a thing as the PGA golf swing? And I think it's fair to say, if we went back 25, 30 years, where all sports were trying to find the ideal movement pattern, that yeah, there was a PGA golf swing. But if we look over time now, we have here Justin Rose, who still today swings the club in a lovely, what some might say, very orthodox way. But we also have players out there like Matt Kuchar and Jim Furyk, because they're not all like Justin Rose or Tiger Woods. And these guys, I was just looking this up this morning, but Kuchar has won 16 times around the world and has a bank balance just from his winnings of $52 million. And Jim Furyk has even improved upon that with 25 wins and $72 million from playing the game. So we need to look and see what is it that is the commonalities amongst these players and these swing styles that means that these two great athletes can be as successful as somebody who appears to be quite orthodox. So what we end up doing is within the program, starting at where the rubber meets the road, impact. A thorough understanding of impact is really important for you as a coach and as a player, arguably, but certainly as a coach, be able to start diagnosing all of these various ball flights that you're likely to see when you stand on the lesson tee or go onto the golf course with a student, to try and help them hit some nicer golf shots and at least lose some of the not so nice shots. So it's really important that we start from that base of impact, and that allows us to be able to work with people with more unorthodox movements and still get them to improve their overall flight of the golf ball and control of the ball. Beyond that, what we then start to do is to break it down into the things that you need to know, such as what it is you're going to be coaching, which is the game of golf. Also very important, who you're going to be working with, who you're going to be coaching, so knowing more about the person. And finally, also a real clear understanding of how to coach. We have examples in the past of many coaches who have a very good knowledge of what to coach and the technical specifically, but actually not knowing too much or not being as strong on understanding the person in front of you or how your coaching styles need to change to complement the player in front of you, means that you're never able to do the best job you can do. So with regards to the training program at the PGA now, we start with impact, we work through an awful lot of other very important areas that allow you to be as good a coach as you can be. We'll do that slightly different to the rest of the subject areas. You actually will also undertake two further coaching qualifications during the course of the training program, but the level 1 and level 2 coaching qualifications with ASQ. And that gives you an opportunity to be taught by experienced and expert tutors who also happen to be extremely good PGA golf professionals, and get some hands-on experience of working with them and colleagues, both in how to coach, but also learning more and more about what to coach. And it's important that you take those because they are a compulsory pass for you to become a PGA member. So overarching, we think we've put in place a really strong program so that as you progress with your career as a PGA golf professional, and you ask the question, which is the question I think probably most PGA professionals will ask when someone comes for a lesson, which is, how can I help? Well, the student will generally bring a problem and they'll be looking for a solution from you. And quite often it's seen that technique is the only answer. But what was hopefully clear from this short presentation today is that there are a range of things that a good coach can look towards to try to influence the decision that they're going to make, and many of those will be interlinked. But ultimately, a good coach has a number of different solutions that they can put forward to try to help that player, and with that, they become a more effective coach. So to finish, we do really believe that anyone who has good coaching skills can become the CEO of the golf facility where they work. By that, I don't necessarily mean the chief executive officer, but I absolutely do mean the chief engagement officer. Somebody who has the skills through the education that's provided by the PGA in all of the subject areas to inspire and engage people to take up golf or to play more golf, and convert and retain that interest so that they have a customer for life, a golfer for life, and somebody that is in the sport for a very long period of time. So while I can't necessarily say to you that you will be a coach full time or you will use coaching once a month, what we do know is that we're confident the coaching knowledge that you will get from the PGA is going to stand you up very, very well for your career in golf. So thank you very much, and I think we're going to pass you on to Philip.
Thanks, David. So I'm going to make Philip our presenter now. So Philip's going to talk to you about the equipment technology and custom fitting side of the modules.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope that you can hear me okay. My name's Philip Dye, and I look after the equipment technology modules and also the rules of golf. I completed a sports studies degree at Bedfordshire University, and then after that, I joined the PGA training program. So I've been in exactly the same position as most of you, and then after completing that, I actually started, just go back slightly, I started wanting to be a coach, and then throughout my time on the training program, I got more and more interested in the equipment side and in the rules side. And so that was decided, that was one of the reasons I sort of decided to kind of focus my career in that particular area. I did my training at the Belfry, where I basically worked as a custom fitter and as a coach for most of that time. And then once I graduated as a PGA member, I went out to the Netherlands and I worked out there for a company that focused specifically on building clubs and custom fitting before getting the opportunity to come back and work on the PGA training program myself. So why do we teach equipment on the training program? Well, for me, it's certainly one of the key subject areas that you'll need, regardless of the career path that you decide to take. So I think just to start with, in the short term, when it comes to your own game, it's very important that you have a good understanding of the equipment that you're using. So you're just about to turn professional. Obviously, the scores you shoot are going to be very important now, especially if you want to try and earn a little bit of money as well. And I think the better understanding you have of how equipment works, that's going to allow you to make more informed decisions about the type of equipment that you use. So that's one reason that we teach it. Another reason, like David said, is a lot of our membership will go into coaching. And I really don't think it's possible to be a good coach unless you have a good understanding of the equipment that's being used as well. If you start to diagnose issues with the ball flight as a swing issue, when it's something that could be caused by the equipment that somebody's using, then you could be going down a road that's maybe a little bit dangerous and not particularly helpful for a player. if you're one of those people that's not necessarily interested in going down either the playing or the coaching route or even the custom fitting route, it's still important that you have a good understanding of equipment, particularly in a retail setting where most of you will be based, certainly for the next couple of years, I would imagine. There are a lot of manufacturers in the market that are producing a wide range of golf clubs. I mean, just very quickly, Ping, Callaway, TaylorMade, Titleist, Cleveland, Srixon, you've got 5 or 6 brands there. Most of those brands are going to produce between 3 and 4 models. It doesn't take very long before you get into a situation where you could have, you know, tens of thousands of possible equipment combinations. And so if somebody comes into your place of work looking to buy new golf equipment, you need to be able to figure out quite quickly what it is they're looking for and put together a set that's going to help them improve their game. The modules across the 3 years, we break them down really into 3 core areas, on the equipment side and on the rules side. So the equipment is broken down into what the club is doing and what the ball is doing and how it works. For the purposes of this presentation, we've broken it down, but they're all very related. There's a lot of crossover between how the club is working and how the ball is working together. You can't always separate them into 2 sort of very distinct categories. And then the rules as well, I'll talk a little bit about the rules in a second, but the rules we break down into the rules of the game, which you'll need to know for your tournament play, definitely very helpful, but also the rules that govern the equipment that you use. So how big golf clubs can be, for example, what the dimensions of the golf ball need to be and things like that. The clubs element, the club modules, I'll just break down those down a little bit for you. Across the 3 years, you'll look at all the different types of clubs. So you'll look at wedges, you'll look at driver, irons, putter. We'll teach you in the first couple of years how to actually put the components together to build golf clubs. I think that's a really important skill. Not that many people are doing it anymore, but I think if you can learn how to build equipment for people, that's going to allow you to create equipment that's much more customized to different players, and that's going to help you stand out from the crowd a little bit. So we'll do that in the first couple of years, and we'll also teach you across all 3 years about the fitting process that's needed. So how do you actually get to a position where you're making recommendations about the specifications of a set that are going to suit a particular player. On the ball side, just breaking that down a little bit further as well, we'll discuss the design and construction of a golf ball. So depending on your age a little bit, a lot of you may have only ever played with a solid ball, but that's not always been the case. So if you go back sort of pre-2000, golf balls were very different. They had a different cover, they had a different internal structure. And understanding sort of the historical development of the golf ball from sort of post-2000 and pre-2000 is going to be really valuable in helping you understand why it's reacting off the club face in the way that it does. And we'll also look at the aerodynamics. So if anybody out there is using a launch monitor and is potentially looking at launch angles and spin rates in particular, we're going to have a little look at how you can utilize that information and how your understanding of why the ball flies the way that it does can help with recommendations around a particular ball type for a player, or whether you need to change the loft on a driver or something like that. So the rules, as I've said, we break that down into the equipment rules, and we break it, and then we also discuss the rules of the game. Sometimes people come to me and say that the rules can be a little bit of a flat topic, but really it's what you make of it. And I've just got a few examples here. We've got John Paramore in the top right-hand side of the screen. He's a European Tour referee, has been for many, many years. To me, that sounds like a very interesting career, traveling around the world, watching some of the best players play week in, week out, and and helping to administrate the rules out at that level seems to me a very interesting career. If you're working in a golf club, you can use your knowledge of the rules to support the members. That's quite often done through quiz nights and things like that. Usually they're very valuable, and they generate quite a bit of income, both for you as a PGA member, but also for the club, which is going to make you more valuable. Understanding the rules from a playing perspective is really, really important. There's an example on the screen here of Tiger Woods at the Masters a few years ago, a player who is renowned for understanding the rules very, very well. And even he's made mistakes in the past. In this particular situation, he didn't drop the ball in the right position. He was looking to try and gain a competitive advantage by moving back to a more preferable yardage. That came out in the interview, actually, after the round had finished, and he was penalised 2 strokes, which at that level is going to be very expensive, and if you're not careful, that could cost you a competition or 2. So understanding the rules from your own playing perspective is very important. And then the final one, this is Chris Joyce down on the right hand side in the right picture on the bottom of the screen. Chris Joyce is a member of our rules panel, and you might actually see him out on the road every now and again. He'll be at some of the tournaments when you're playing, and he's been a referee now at multiple majors and multiple Ryder Cups. And so, although on the face of it you might feel like the rules are a little bit of a dry subject, they have the ability to take you to a lot of very exciting places. So that'll be covered predominantly in year 1, and we'll have a little look at that a little bit later. But it doesn't matter which sort of career path you decide to go down. So if you want to go down the custom fitting or the coaching route, if you prefer retail, if you like the rules, I think the information that you cover across the 3 years of my modules will be really valuable to that. And there's lots of other places that we haven't discussed where this information could take you, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to discuss that later on in the year. So I just wanted to finish really quickly with a couple of examples of other things people have done with their knowledge of either equipment or the rules of golf. So this is Reese Atkinson. He runs Eclipse Golf. Some of you might know him. He was a Callaway Tour rep for many, many years, PGA professional. He owns his own business. So although he started with an interest in equipment, he's now in a position where he runs a very successful business. He has multiple fitting studios across the country. That requires a very different skill set nowadays, but it started with a general interest in equipment when he was on the training program. This is Adrian. He's the European Tour representative for TaylorMade, and again, another PGA professional. I believe he qualified in around about 2012, and he's been out on tour for a little while. So somebody who's progressed very, very quickly. And every day he's putting into practice his knowledge of how equipment works technically, but also the club building skills that he developed on the program. This is Sean Brady, very, very helpful guy. Hopefully you get the opportunity to come into contact with him at some point over the next few years. Sean Brady, like myself, did a degree at university in mechanical engineering, actually. He then went on to do the PGA program before going and working with Callaway in their R&D department. Later on, moved to TaylorMade, where he became Director of Customer and Brand Experience. And he now works for Top Tracer. So if you've been watching any of the golf last night, or you've watched any of the On the Range series through the PGA Tour website, all of the ball tracking technology that's there, that's from Top Tracer, and that's what Sean's doing at the moment. So again, somebody who had a general interest in equipment very early on and has managed to carve out this really interesting career that again has taken him all over the world. And then finally, Chris Trott, who's Director of Global Tools for TaylorMade. And again, this is probably somebody you've come across through social media. He worked as a custom fitter at the Belfry throughout his training, and then he went on to work with some better players on the European and the PGA Tour, and now he's got a marketing role. So hopefully you've got a better understanding now of where the information we cover across the equipment and rules modules might be able to take you. And like Jack said, if you've got any more specific questions around the modules at the end of the presentation, then I'd be more than happy to try and answer them for you. Now I'm going to hand over to Craig, who's going to talk you through some of the business modules.
Thanks, Philip. So I'm just going to change Craig to the presenter, and if you switch off your microphone and webcam, Philip, and we'll hand over to Craig.
Still good morning. So good morning, everyone. Let's get my screen up. Okay, so kind of welcome to the business and management section of this virtual open day. So just to kind of give you a bit of background on me, I'm the training executive for business and management. My background is mostly in education in the wider sports industry, so obviously sports development, sports management, and sports marketing. While I've been here at the PGA, I've created several contacts within the industry, and these have helped contribute towards the course. So all the material is up-to-date knowledge with the expertise knowledge from the industry. I've run numerous sports facilities up and down the country. I'm a very keen sports myself, maybe not in golf, but having played professional basketball, so I understand the kind of the dedication that you guys have to put into your craft, so to play at the high levels. So the golf industry is worldwide, and by having this qualification and being able to call yourself a PGA professional, it can really unlock a lot of doors, not just in the UK and Europe, but as we've got there, Asia, Australia, Africa, South America, and the North Americans as well. Okay. Currently, from our last round of surveys, we have PGA professionals currently working in 81 different countries around the world. So, as I said, with our surveys, we've kind of surveyed loads of different PGA professionals, and we've actually asked them what kind of different roles they have. And there's roughly about 80 different roles that the PGA professionals are identified. Now, we've managed to kind of narrow these down into more of the 4 sections. So, predominantly the roles fall into either retailer, director of golf, player, or a coach. So, for retailers, you really need to know the importance of customer service. How to make those customer relationships. So, if, for example, if you guys think of who you buy your clubs from, why do you buy it from them? Are they trustworthy? Are they honest? Have they always gave you good discounts? Are they friendly enough? Is it just the local PGA professional, or do you go online to try and buy clubs? Yeah, and also look at the financial aspects of products as well. So, how much are you buying them in for? How much you sell them for? How much overheads cost? All of these have to be kind of taken into account when you look at it from a retail point of view. Directors of golf, they have to lead teams, so you have to have that man management skill. You must be able to communicate and motivate people. You also need to write business plans and looking at commercial strategies, because they have the bigger picture for the whole golfing industry section. So it's not just, oh, I can just focus on my coaching. No, they have to look at a much bigger, wider avenue, especially looking at some of the big venues that we have. Players, you're looking at sponsorship. You know, is it financially viable? Obviously, if you were to manage to get onto the tour, you know, looking at the financial aspects of it, how much travel can you balance the money effectively? And then obviously the coaching, how do you market yourself and how do you get your customers to come to you? You can have all the best technical knowledge and be one of the world's most renowned coaches, but if you can't get people to come to you, then all that technical knowledge that you have, you won't be able to use and won't be able to utilize effectively. So over the kind of like 3 years of the golf business modules, you'll have in year 1 your workplace and being a PGA professional. This is where you're looking at more like branding, time management, selling, customer service, and this kind of focuses you on how to be a good assistant and how you would start to become a PGA professional. In year 2, we look at the principles of business. So we're looking at the marketing, organizational structures, retail and business models, and then applying them to the golf industry. We also focus on other factors, so what you need to keep an eye on. So when you're graduating, you're already starting to build a picture of, is there something coming up that I need to know about? And we'll talk about that. And then year 3 is business finance. Here's where we start looking at budgeting, forecasting, business plans, and all of the areas. So this is now when you're looking at maybe, you're graduating, you're starting to think, oh, my first job's coming up. How do I start my own business? What skills do I need? How much finance do I need to put into it? So all of this you will now start to think about. Okay. Over the 3 years, the business accounts for 60 credits, which is 25% of the training program. A lot of people, when we talk about business management, they go, oh, well, I just really want to either be a coach or I just want to be a player. The business side of it is just as important as every other thing, and the PGA recognises this. And when you are out in the industry, you'll start to pick up, well, actually, yeah, I need to know about the money side of factors. So just kind of give like a little overview of some of the stuff that we're going to do. I've just got a little quiz, so you can play it yourself at home. I'm going to give you 10 seconds from the question, just so you can kind of understand the question, and then also think about kind of why that it's linked to business. So according to the RNA, how many golf courses are there in Great Britain and Ireland? So you've got your 4 questions. I'm going to give you a quick 10 seconds. Three, 2, 1. So there's actually 3,297 golf courses. So in the 1980s, the RNA recommended that more golf courses were needed. They were starting to swell with numbers, and people were saying, oh, we can't really play. So there was a big boom in the golf courses needed. And this all came in with the de-restriction of land giving. So previously, if land was there, you couldn't just build on it. You had to have all the permissions, but then because they deregularized that in the 1980s from the UK government, a lot of people could buy the land and build golf courses. So it was a very good boom. And there was also looking at the commercial viability. So that's where you started to have your earlier resorts and proprietary courses, because they became commercially viable. Business owners saw that as, we can charge people to play the courses and we can make money. Okay. Also, just after the 1980s, we recovered from the economy. So the people actually had some spare money that they could actually spend on themselves, and looking at how to become, they wanted to spend their leisure time on a golf course. And it still had that kind of status as, I'm a member of a golf club or I play golf. Also, the European tour players were on terrestrial TV. So in the late 80s, early 90s, TV was very prominent on all of the domestic channels. So people had that exposure and they had that buzz. So also currently there are 34,011 golf courses in 206 countries. Okay. Over half of them are in the US, and Canada and Europe currently have 22%. Okay, so question 2, according to the Sports Industry Research Centre, how many adult golfers are there in the UK? So you got question 1, 2.88 million, 3.88 million, number 3, 6.88 million, or 4, 10.88 million. Very quick 10 seconds again. Three, 2, 1. So currently, as I said, this is by the Sports Industry Research Centre, there's 3.88 million adult golfers in the UK. Now, what's kind of important with this is that 1.55 million are classed as regular golfers. Now, this is classed as playing 12 times a year or once a month. This is how Sport England monitor participation across all sports. So although this might seem a bit short, like someone going, well, if you only play once a month, is that really a regular golfer? But because of that's how Sport England recognise it, and also once a month, as long as it's a dedicated monthly thing, that makes a regular occurrence. However, so you got 3.88 million golfers, but that 1.55 million accounts for 75% of all golf spend, and that's including golf rounds, also equipment, also clothing, all the extra spend that would happen in a retail environment comes from those 1.55 million. Okay, to put it into some context, there's roughly 7.9 million golfers in Europe. The final question, what proportion of Great Britain's golfers are golf club members? So we have answer 1, 29%, number 2, 49%, number 3, 69%, and number 4, 89%. I'll give you a quick 10 seconds again. Three, 2, 1. According to the KPMG, 2000's latest numbers, it's 29% golf club members. So that's roughly 1.1 million golfers. Okay. However, earlier to that, there was only 28%, but that was when there was 1.3 million golfers. So 7 years earlier, there was a bit of more golfers. But then before that, once again, there was 32%. So there has been a steady decline in actual golf club members. Now, this has been attributed to several factors. Now, when you're looking at the changes in lifestyles, especially since 2006, going into 2009, and now looking at 2016, some of the biggest kind of areas is the fact that, you know, the leisure time that individuals have is being spent differently. Some of the pros who I've spoken to when I've been talking with said when they first started their training, maybe about 10 years ago, they saw one guy come in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, without fail, regular as clockwork. But then, you know, family time starts to get a bit more, work starts to come in a bit more, and then it started going to just Saturday, Sundays. Now it was just a Sunday round of golf. So it's starting to see that all those other factors that will take up a person's time. Unfortunately, some people are now starting to think, well, is the golf club membership really worth it for me? Especially with the downturn in people's income, and even worse now with the COVID-19 situation and some people losing their jobs. They don't actually have the actual spare kind of resources and money to keep a golf club membership. So they have to look at the value of that membership to them, and that's where you as golf professionals can add that value to their membership. So that roughly leaves about 68% of golfers as nomad golfers. So they're not assigned to a club, they're not assigned, they're the kind of guys who'll phone up and say, oh, can I have a quick round on the course? But the golf club members, so out of that 29%, they play 59% of the rounds of golf, and on average they play 50 rounds in a year, whereas non-golfers average 9 rounds per annual. So this is where you can really generate and see why that kind of the smaller percentage who are engaged in golf, who are at the facilities, who are having that spend, account for the extra 75% of spend, but also play those extra rounds. I hope that was kind of a whistle-stop tour of business and management in golf for you. So I'm going to hand back to Simon now.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you. So if you would like to switch off your webcam and microphone, handing back to myself. So as I mentioned to you earlier, what I'm going to do is to give you a little bit of an overview of the training program. So thank you to Jack, David, Philip and Craig talking about the subject areas. As I mentioned at the start, if anyone has any questions, then please use the facility that you should have on your screen to ask a question. And Jack mentioned about presentation, some of the work that he's done. What we will do is send out a link to you with a recording of this session, but also a couple of useful documents that you might want to have a little look at. So just to give you a little bit of a background to education at the PGA. Education at the PGA has been in existence since the early 1960s. It developed from a fairly informal kind of training to the PGA awarding its own diploma, and we began our relationship with the University of Birmingham in 2002. That started with the introduction of our AGMS program, which is a full honours degree, which is awarded by the University of Birmingham, swiftly followed by the foundation degree, which again is awarded by the University of Birmingham, and this is what people will, one of the courses that people can study on if they are taking the one of the part-time education routes. And in 2016, primarily for people based in Scotland, living and working in Scotland, and partly because of the funding that's available to people living in Scotland, we formed an association with the University of the Highlands and Islands, and they award a DIP-HE. We currently have around 800 to 900 students on all of our education programs. So I've mentioned our education partners, the University of Birmingham. They award the foundation degree and the AGMS program, and the University of the Highlands and Islands award a DIP-HE and also a full honours degree, BA that they manage. So just thinking about some of the roles of PGA professionals, you may have heard from listening to some of the presentations a number of different roles, but here are just a few up on the screen for you to look at. Interestingly, the right at the bottom there, where we have that 1,800 of our members work overseas. So there are PGA pros in all different areas within the golf industry. So here's a little question: which member of golf club staff would you say you interact with the most? You're probably not going to be surprised. The answer is going to be fairly obvious to you, but what you might be surprised at is how many people that were surveyed actually would say that they interact with the professional, and compared to the other people that are on the screen there, it's a big difference, and it goes to show that the PGA Pro really is at the heart of the golf club. So what we are looking to do is really to provide you with a challenge. It's not necessarily going to be about what the PGA will do for you, but it's how you can make the PGA brand work for you. So that's our challenge to you when people come on the course and work their way through it. So as people are going through the decision stage, really the big decision is whether you're going to consider studying full-time. So perhaps if you're based in England, let's say that you would want to go and study on the AGMS program and have the on-campus experience, or that you're going to study part-time. So if you're going to study part-time, and this is primarily what we're talking about today, the way that it will work is a combination of working, so it's work-based, and the learning that is distance learning based. So that's the way that we've set the program up to facilitate being able to work. You would have a PGA professional that would act as your training professional, and then studying through distance learning. Our initial education is a 3-year program. So to be able to get on the program, the criteria, there are education criteria that need to be met. Again, for people based in England, it will be a minimum of 4 GCSEs. The handicap for people to come onto the program is 6 for males and 8 for females. And you would also need to have a DBS, so have a barring disclosure. And you would also need to have employment at a golf facility under a PGA professional. And as I mentioned, the PGA professional would be your training professional. So for someone starting in October 2020, we would hope that they would complete the course in July 2023 and then be able to graduate as a PGA member in April 2024. So moving on now, lots of hows. How do you study? As I mentioned previously, study is on the job and through our online learning platform. We would have people attending 1 week during each of the 3 years where they would come to the academy. Obviously, this is still our intention, but with the COVID-19 situation, we may need to make alternative arrangements. But that is our current intention, that you would still come for a residential week. So how are you assessed? There's a mixture of assessments. There's written exams, assignments, practical assessments, and a number of online assessments. Support, we have a mentoring system. So students are assigned to a mentor, and then they can build a working relationship with that mentor as they go through the program. We also have PGA admin staff. You'll be assigned an administrator, and that person would be your point of call for any general queries or questions that you have about the training. Also, as you would be associated with either the University of Birmingham or the University of the Highlands and Islands, you would be you are a student of either of those institutions, and you would be able to receive any of the student support or welfare support that is available to any other student from any of those institutions. So looking now at what you would actually study, you can see from the screen that there's 3 different columns. The white column is what you would study in year 1, the green year 2, the gold, the yellow in year 3. So you should be able to see, you've had 4 presentations from our subject leads, that there's a similar theme that runs through each of the years. So there's some business, there is some equipment, custom fitting, and the rules through the industry skills module in year 1, the sports science and the coaching. And then if you look to the green column in the middle, you can see that again there's a similar theme with those 4 subject areas, and then that follows on then with the modules that are taken in year 3. So if anyone is looking in from Scotland, there are different module titles, but essentially the content is all the same. So what we're looking to do is to provide an initial overview of the industry. It's then that we find people start to specialise, and this is where our CPD programs come into use, and also further education that we would be able to offer people. So I've mentioned already that people coming onto the program need to have a DBS or a barring disclosure. This is dependent on where people are located. It used to be called the criminal records check. This must be maintained throughout the time that people are on the program. You will also take a safeguarding and protecting children course. This is done at the start of the course, and again it would need to be maintained throughout. The level 1 and level 2 coaching awards that David mentioned in his presentation, usually level 1 is taken at some point during year 1, and then level 2 is done during year 2, and hopefully that's then completed by the time people start their year 3. There is also a PGA coaching assessment, and that coaching assessment needs to be taken as one of the criteria to be able to apply for membership. Because of the sort of environment that people are generally in, we would also expect people to have a first aid certificate, and also that because you're coming on as a golf professional, that you're playing golf, and people will need to play a minimum of 7 PGA tournament rounds per year. So To be able to apply for membership, you need to have at least 21 tournament rounds under your belt. There is additional playing criteria depending on what you come in with handicap wise, but that's all sent out to people when they make their application. So what do you need to do next? Obviously, to complete any outstanding paperwork. If this is the case, then Tracy, who, if you've made any inquiries, Tracy looks after our admissions. She is the person that you would need to speak to around paperwork. You would need to attend an introduction day. This is going to be held online this year. The sort of things that we look at in the introduction day are an introduction to the PGA. We look at some study skills. We get people to do some peer marking, so people are able then to see the sort of standard that's required of them through that peer marking. You would also do the safeguarding course, the Safeguarding and Protecting Children course. Currently, that's being done online, whereas usually it's done face-to-face. Obviously, we don't know where we are at the moment, but we envisage that it will still be done online, but we will sort this out in due course for people. Obviously, student finance. So if you're able to access student finance to pay for the fees, then that's something that you would need to get sorted fairly soon before you start. The fees include the introduction day and the level 1 and 2 courses, but they don't include any travel or accommodation expenses. Likewise, doesn't include tournament entry fees and travel expenses to tournaments, but hopefully you'll be winning some money. So the start dates, our academic year starts in early October each year. We will be looking for people to start their level 1 course, which this year will be some blended learning, a mixture of online and face-to-face sessions for the assessments. Looking for that to start November, December time, but obviously because of the current situation, that may change, and obviously we would consult with you. As I've mentioned, the residentials, we would look to hold the residentials. That's our intention. And for year 1 students, that they would take place in January of next year. The year 2 residentials would be in March 2022, and then the year 3 residential in November 2022. The fantastic thing with the program is that it does facilitate the opportunity for people to come onto the program and to not necessarily have fantastic academic qualifications, but be able to leave with a full degree. So this really does make it unique. So for those that are starting on the foundation degree program through the University of Birmingham, there would be the opportunity to top up the foundation degree to a full degree, 2 years, part-time, again, distance blended learning to be able to do that. And obviously we would provide more information to you at the appropriate time. Again, for those people that are based in Scotland, and for if they want to carry on and study beyond the DIP-HE that they're awarded, there would be the opportunity to do that in a similar way, 2 years, part-time, so that allows you to continue with your work, and again, distance learning. So I hope that's been useful, certainly useful for to be able to see what goes on with the subjects. We've now got an opportunity for you to ask questions, and we will now take any questions that people have. So if you've submitted questions, then we'll certainly be able to answer them for you. Okay, so if everyone would like to put their webcams on and the microphones on. Thank you. And we'll leave it open to you to be able to ask us questions now, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay, we have had a few questions come in, Simon. So the first one is, I'm struggling to find a work placement. What happens if I can't find one?
Okay, so a work placement is an essential part of the course, because it is a mixture of learning academically from us, but being able to apply that in a place of work. So that is one of the main criteria that people need to have. If you don't have that, then you will, if you get in contact with Tracy, who deals with our admissions, we have the facility to try and help people with work placements. We certainly know that there are places out there that have a need for staff, and we can facilitate that to try and put you in the right employment situation to be on the program.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, the next one is, I will be working at a golf range under AA PGA professional, not at a golf course. Does this meet the employment criteria?
Yes, it would, because what we require, and you know, it's not just about green grass sites. We understand and realise that there's so many different areas and facets to working within the golf industry. What the criteria says is that you need to be at a golf facility.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Is there a minimum amount of hours, weekly or monthly, you must work with a PGA Pro for?
The current regulations are that you need to be working at the facility for 30 hours per week.
Okay, great, thank you. For anyone starting the course in October 2020, when do students lose their amateur status?
So we normally find that there's two different type of student that come onto the program. There are those that want to turn pro immediately and start playing as a professional, and then there are those that come on and they want to hang on to their amateur status for as long as they can and be able to have a sort of final season with using their amateur status. Obviously, with the current situation and the difficulties that we've all had in playing and tournaments, we're finding that more people are hanging on to their amateur status. But what happens is that when we have your acceptance of the offer, then and the various different documents signed and returned to us, that's when you officially lose your amateur status. So it's really dependent on the type of person you are, someone that either is keen to turn pro or wants to hang on to their amateur status. It's when you get that paperwork back to us. But obviously it needs to be done and dusted and sorted before the academic year starts at the beginning of October.
Right, thank you. We've got a few more just come in. So has the minimum handicap changed because of COVID-19, because of the COVID-19 outbreak?
The handicap has changed for this year. I wouldn't say that it was particularly because of the COVID situation, but the handicap has changed. As I mentioned, it's 6 for males and 8 for females. Depending on what handicap you come in at, there is additional playing criteria needed whilst people are on the programme. But again, all of that information is supplied to people when they make their inquiries.
Okay, great, thank you. What is the cost of the residential against overseas learning? It's a question not too sure.
So fees for people on the foundation degree, and if someone is overseas, they would be usually classed as a international student. The fees for foundation degree students would include residential elements or the alternatives that we may have to provide for people. For people that are potentially coming on through being in Scotland and working in Scotland, there is a different fee structure, so there is an additional payment for PGA elements. Again, that may include residential alternatives and some of the PGA requirements that we've mentioned in the presentation.
Okay, great. Do you help us with our actual golf game?
I would certainly like to think that we do, and you know, having listened to the presentations that certainly Jack and David from the coaching and sports science have provided, if what you are learning about the golf swing, what you're learning about your, the way that your body works in the golf swing, and the other sports science aspects that are included, whilst you would certainly be able to apply those that knowledge to people other than yourself, certainly you would be you would, if you applied it to yourself, be able to improve your game. The same with the equipment, from making sure that your equipment is fitted correctly, and the understanding that you would gain from the interaction of the ball and club and that sort of thing in both the coaching and the equipment areas. So whilst it's not direct that you'll be getting coaching from us, you certainly should be learning loads of stuff that will help your own game.
I think it would be interesting. It would be important to say that with all the information that you're being given, which is all very much front line, cutting edge stuff, you're definitely going to be in a better position to ask questions of yourself, of your own coach, of your PGA professional as a result of going through the program. So we would hope that it can have nothing but a positive effect on your game overall.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. The next question is, how many tournaments will get played during my course?
So the way that tournaments work is that you would be in a particular region. So it may be the north, the south, the Midlands, and the tournaments are all organised by the regions. There would certainly be plenty of tournaments available through the tournaments and the vast majority of the county tournaments that would allow you to get the minimum of the 7 rounds that are required each year.
Okie doke. Next one's quite a long one. I currently have an eligible handicap to enter the program, although I've been told previously that I do not have a consistent enough playing history. What would be considered a consistent playing history? I recently suffered an injury and had only made a return to golf in the 2019 season, and also currently work a full-time job, and I'm trying to play as much as possible. I think that's the.
I think
help would be.
I think individual circumstances would be very difficult to comment on. It also probably wouldn't be appropriate to comment on an individual circumstance, but that would certainly be something that if inquiry is made to Tracy, that we will be able to address that for you.
Great. Okay. Next one. I am 39. Finding my GCSE results may prove troublesome. Is that an issue?
Someone that that comes on in a situation like that, we would be able to we would be able to do some research with you to ascertain what your qualifications are, but also you would have the ability to come on as what we would term as a mature student. So we would be able to we would certainly be able to assist you there. The important thing is that whilst there is a lower age limit of 18, there's certainly not an upper age limit, and we would welcome, and we do welcome, people that are perhaps considering a career change, or you know, just because it's what they want to do. Very welcome to apply and come onto the program.
Okay, great. Do you still have to do a playing ability test? And if so, what would be the playing, or what is the playing criteria?
We no longer have a playing ability test. We've made changes to the handicap entry criteria. As we've already mentioned, there are additional playing requirements depending on what handicap you come in at, and again, that will be communicated to you depending on what what you come in at handicap wise. So no playing ability test now.
Okay. What are the restrictions in regards to coaching juniors prior to achieving the ASQ Level 1 coaching qualification? Probably for you, David.
David, perhaps you want to...
Can you just repeat that to me?
Yeah, sure. What are the restrictions in regards to coaching juniors prior to achieving the Level 1 coaching qualification?
The guidelines are very clear that if you don't have the Level 1, then you certainly can't assist or deliver coaching specifically to juniors on your own. Once you've got through the Level 1 qualification, you'll be able to assist your PGA professional, the more qualified coach. Then typically as we move into year 2, if you have been busy in and around the coaching environment at your club, then the PGA professional who is employing you has the opportunity to let you start to do more coaching on your own.
Okay, great. I'm a UK citizen living abroad with residency. Can I still come to the UK and take the residential course?
Yes, and non-UK residents and citizens do come onto the program. We would guide you through what is required with regard to the type of visa that would be needed if that was necessary. But yeah, we would, where we are able to offer residentials, because obviously with this year we're not quite sure what's going to happen, but where we have residentials, we really do expect people to attend them wherever they're based.
Okay, great. I'm struggling to find fitting centres that stock a higher level of equipment that might be useful for my game. Where in Scotland might I find this?
Philip, you?
Yeah.
Okay, I've not really spent a great deal of time up in Scotland, so I'd really struggle. But I'd be quite happy to have a little look around for you and see if I can find some names that maybe would be appropriate, some qualified PGA members that would be good to see. Happy to do that afterwards.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question was, is there still a PAT test for applicants? But we've already talked about that, haven't we? And said no. Yeah. I'm based out in India as a golf teaching professional. What is the fees and the schedule of the program in part-time?
The schedule of the program is exactly the same. There is a different fee for international students. The fee for foundation degree students is $4,250 per year, it's 5,250 or 5,500 per year for international students. But the schedule and everything else is exactly the same, no matter where you're based.
Okay, great. For the purpose of the course, will we get a hard copy or hard copy study notes, or will it all be electronic?
It's all electronic. There is the option for students to be able to print off some of that, some of the work. We would certainly encourage that where where it's needed, but essentially the delivery is online.
Right. Where is the best place to find out about eligibility for student finance?
I would suggest that the person that you need to speak to is our admissions administrator. Her name is Tracy McCausland.
Okay, great.
If you send an email, sorry Tim, I was just going to say, if people haven't already been in touch with Tracy, the email address to get in touch with her is admissions@pga.org.uk.
Okay, great. And where do we find contact details, please, to apply?
That email address is the one to use, or if you do a search for pga.info, then there is information on that site about the course and how to apply.
Are there any exam allowances or exemptions or allowances for existing qualifications in business studies and management?
So depending on whether we're talking in Scotland, there would be RPL, so recognition of prior learning, or if you are studying the foundation degree course, APL. So what we would be able to do is to look at what people have studied previously, look at the modules, the level and so on, and then provide exemptions. But it's probably something that we would address in more detail when someone's actually started on the course. But yeah, that is available, as it is with any course. What it doesn't mean is that you can be exempted and that you'll, instead of that you'll go straight in at year 2 or something like that. You would still start in year 1, but it may be that some of the assessments you are exempted from.
Okay. And then this is the last question we've had through. As part of your employment as a facility, do you have to be fully paid or be paid through teaching, and or do you get free use of the facility to practice if you're earning wages through other means?
You would need to be employed at the facility for the 30 hours. If you are then in a position, as David has already mentioned about when people can start teaching, if you are able to start earning additional money through coaching, then that would be an arrangement that you would need to make with the facility. And also where you said about, do you get the facility free of charge? Again, that will be down to your individual negotiation at your place of work.
We just had a couple more come through. So, will we be able to look at our own physical ability with the technology available during the residential period?
Well, I think you'd certainly get a chance potentially when we are delivering the residentials, both within sports science and golf coaching. It might not be specific to your requirements for a long period of time, but yeah, we're constantly using the students, the peer-to-peer learning, and I think the screening exercises that you go through, Jack, would be a great example of learning about your own body whilst learning about the subject.
Yeah, was that question that broke a little bit? Was that question just based around technology, pretty much, or technology with
your own physical ability with the technology? So.
Yeah. So just stuff on that. For instance, like with the screening, we'll do that in the swing room. Also, we'll do some hitting in the swing room. So one of the classic things that we look at is if you've got your 2 feet on the pressure trace mat, someone who's got a lead hip internal rotation, so they can't rotate through the lead side. What we classically look for is that sort of foot spinning out and the pressure changing there. So teach you like almost little things you can look for when you're using pressure trace. If someone early extends, for example, so if they stand up, what you tend to find is that little pressure trace dot will move towards the feet. So again, we'll talk about how sort of technology can be utilized to link stuff to the body. Also as well, obviously using launch monitors as well, looking at how the body and certainly undesirable movements might affect impact factors. For instance, if you can't externally rotate your shoulder, you tend to be a little bit more upright in your downswing, and that means you can come from out to in, so you swing pass out to in. So yeah, we cover quite a lot in terms of how the technology can be utilized to help identify undesirable or unwanted movements. So yeah, I've certainly seen a lot as a practitioner, and I try and pass that back because I think that sort of stuff, the golden nuggets, are really valuable for practitioners and our PGA pros. So yeah, we talk about that quite a lot. I've given away all our learning material already.
I know. That's great. Thanks, Chat. A couple more. Is are maths and English still a requirement?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is one for Philip. Do we learn how to fix and regrip golf clubs?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll do that in the first and the second years predominantly, and during the residentials you'll get the opportunity to actually build golf clubs and make repairs. But it doesn't just stop at the residentials. There's learning material throughout the entire program, and as you progress through the years, it becomes more and more detailed. So hopefully by the end of the program, at the end of the third year, you'll be able to go beyond some of just the basic specifications such as length, loft, and lie, and you'll actually have a really good understanding of things like MOI matching and how to match different types of sets to different people. Obviously, there's a very popular golfer at the moment who's playing a single length set, and that's an interesting concept. It can't work for everybody, but hopefully by the end of it, you'll have a really good idea of how to actually put a set like that together. It's not easy. It's a lot more complicated than you might think. But you'll also have an appreciation of who that will and won't work for. So absolutely, we'll do that on every year for sure.
Okay, that's great. We've got just one more come in. It's probably for you, Craig. On the business side, does that go into computer programs and systems and how to understand and utilize them properly?
We do cover stuff such as EPAS systems on the program, but we don't go into specific ones due to the sheer nature and number of different systems there could be. So rather than just teaching you one specific system, we try to give you just an appreciation of the whole kind of the electrical EPAS system.
Okay. Another one. Is there a way of securing a spot on the course whilst trying to gather the necessary documents and placement? That would be for you, Simon.
I would suggest that the best thing to do would be to put in an application, and then that puts you on Tracy's radar, and then she can assist you to get all of the things put in place that are needed to do. You know, what we find is that it's not just people put an application in and then bang, that's everything done and dusted. People put an application in and there's quite a potentially quite a lengthy process where people need to get things back to us. You know, for example, it may just be handicap certificates. It may be down to the making the disclosure, the barring disclosure application. So if someone makes puts in an application, then that will get the ball rolling, and then Tracy will be able to assist you as you go through that then.
Right. Replacement, or regarding placement again, am I able to continue with the start of the course in the interim if I can't find a placement? Or if I can't find one?
That is not something that we would be able to facilitate. Someone would need to have a placement as part of the entry criteria that's currently in our regulations. People, once they're on the course, you know, we understand that people change their positions and people are able to have a period of time where they're unattached, but to actually come onto the program, there would need to be a placement sorted.
That's great, thank you. And it appears the last one that's come in. Hi, I'm Irish, and after being offered a place in the program, can I apply for student finance or a loan, and is it a hard process? Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that people can still apply for student finance. There are, if people are not able to gain finance, then there are options for career development loans. Again, I would suggest that if you get in touch with Tracy, she can provide you all of the links that you would need to be able to start investigating that. Paul, perhaps there's anything else that I've missed or that I should have covered there? You need to unmute your microphone, Paul.
Oh, I thought I can unmute myself. In terms of student finance, yes, student finance is available if you've not claimed it before. Again, it's really, you can look within the Department for Education website in your particular country attached to the government to identify the best way to do that. But again, we've got experience of people getting student finance from all the 4 nations of the UK, so of Great Britain and ISOI. So yeah, there should be no problem at all if you've not claimed it before.
Just another question. Does greenkeeping count as a valid work placement?
You would need to be employed at a golf facility. I think it would be a conversation that we would need to have outside of it to see what the breakdown of how much greenkeeping was being done against the other aspects of the program.
Cool. Okay, and where can we find a list of PGA recognised events that we are required to play in each year?
All of that information is supplied to you when you're on the program. As I've mentioned already, you'd be attached to a region. They would communicate all of that out to you, most of the bookings are done on a system called Blue Golf. So that's where tournaments are listed and where you make your bookings for them.
That's good. That's great. There's no more questions coming in. Yeah. Thank you all. Okay. Well,
thank you for hosting those, Tim. As I've said earlier, thank you to colleagues, to Paul for the welcome, and then for the subject discussions from Jack and David, Philip and Craig. As I've mentioned, we'll send out a link for a recording of this session, and we'll also send out some additional useful links for you. So thank you for visiting us today, and we hope this has been useful for you. So I'm going to end the webinar now. So thank you very much.